Dan, you've seen training camp. You've been there. You've heard these guys. What is reasonable to expect? What are you expecting in 2020 from the Browns? And we'll get into the challenges they face, but what do you expect from this team?
Well, as basic as it sounds, how about just a baseline of competence, right? I think this team is going to be able to do the things they're supposed to do, which was a challenge at times last year when they'd be breaking the huddle late in the play clock and scrambling to get a playoff, just basically executing their offense. We're going to see a team that is prepared. I think there's going to be moments where you look at this coaching staff and some of the decisions they make, and you're like, that was a really smart decision. I don't think they're going to be outsmarted too often. They're going to make decisions based on data. They're going to be equipped with everything they need to make good decisions out there on the field. So I think that's going to be kind of exciting because we haven't always seen that going all the way back to 1999. So I think we're going to see a team that's organized, that doesn't hurt itself too often, maybe a little early just because they're out of rhythm. But once they kind of get things figured out, I don't think we'll see a team that's penalized too often. I just think Browns fans are going to look at this football team and feel really good about the way it's headed. I don't know that their record's going to be amazing, but I think fans are going to be happy with what they're seeing on Sundays.
Well, I would, just based on when you look at what the roster is on paper, if they are able to do what you're saying, I think the results would be significantly better than they've been. What do you think a reasonable expectation for a record would be?
I'm going to go with 8-8. That's sort of what I've been saying. I know that's sort of boring and kind of vanilla, but I just can't get away from that 7-9 win, frame. And so I'm going with 8-8. I think there's going to be some games where, a game like this against Baltimore, look, they could go there and surprise everybody and win. I mean, they did it last year, and we know how awful last year was. So anything can happen. I think the schedule is a little sneakier, tough than people think it is. You've got some games like Houston, Indianapolis, Philadelphia, teams that, have high ceilings, are probably, their floors are probably in that 8-8 to 9-7 range. So, those games kind of might help decide where your season goes. But right now I look at this team with a new coach, no offseason, new system. I think still adding more talent to the roster, especially on the defensive side. I just see an 8-8 team right now.
Yeah, I was thinking along the lines of 9-7, and with the caveat that if they get good play from some of the younger guys they signed on defense, that I think that's going to be the key. I think the offense is going to be pretty good. And if you get a guy like Carl Joseph that plays like a first-round pick, Kevin Johnson, even Jacob Phillips, if he's a guy that can solidify and just make tackles when he's supposed to, which is what he was criticized for at LSU, that he wasn't flashy. If he makes tackles, I think there's an upside to this team, but I'm not ready to say, boy, they're going to do that.
And I think you nailed it, pointing to those positions. I think when you look at the secondary and you look at the linebackers, if those two positions are really good, if those two positions are really surprising, then yeah, we're talking about a football team that can really do some things. But right now the only guy that you kind of look at and say, okay, I know what that guy is, I know what he can do, and I trust him, is probably Denzel Ward. And then across the board, you're just sort of looking at guys like Carl Joseph, a guy like Ronnie Harrison that you just added. Who knows how much impact he can have early on. On the other side of Denzel, Greedy Williams, is he ready to be the number 2, or are they going to have to go with Terrence Mitchell? There's just so many questions in those two areas of the defense. That's really where you have to circle and say, okay, if they surprise us, great, this team's going to be really good. But that's definitely where you have to have the most concern, I think.